Hey guys, what's going on? It's Paintball Duke 22 here. How's it going, team? Alright, so today we are going to get into part 3 of our Redstone tutorials. This is going to be the more advanced Redstone tutorials dealing with flip-flops and then just anything else that I wanted to cover. So, right here, let's just go ahead and get into it without further ado. This is a D flip-flop, also known as a data flip-flop. Now, what this gate is designed to do is it's designed to store the inputs that it receives, and it does this by using this input right here. Anytime this input is active, whatever the other inputs do, the output is not going to change whatsoever. However, when this is inactive and we hit the other output, it will stay. The thing is, if we then turn this input active, it's going to remember the input that we had before. So the only way this is going to change its state is if the input for the memory is inactive. That's the only way we're going to be able to get this to go up and down. So let me go ahead and show you how this works. So this redstone is feeding into this block. So input that changes the output ultimately is feeding into this block, which there's a redstone torch on the other side of it, and there's one branch of redstone that's feeding into this block, turning the torch off there, and one branch that's going here into this memory cell. It's a tiny little version of an RS NOR latch, and I'll go ahead and give you guys an example of why that's an RS NOR latch here as soon as I get done explaining how this works. So, when we flick this switch, this torch goes out, which turns the power on to this block right here. Now you see our memory cell just switched sides. So this side is now active and this side is inactive right here. What happens is, in order to store the memory, we flick this switch. Well, let's follow the redstone current. So, this redstone right here feeds into this torch, which keeps this torch off. Even if we release this input now, it keeps this torch off, but it also, it'll turn this torch off, so it's not being affected by this in case this one decided to turn this back on. This one is still keeping this torch off. And ultimately, since this torch is off, it stops the memory cell from resetting itself. So let's go ahead and flick this switch, and we'll flick this one again. So we see now that as soon as we apply power to this side, this is going to go off, which is going to send the signal to reset this memory cell. So let's go ahead and flick this off, and we see that this fed into this block, which turned the torch off, and this fed into this block, which reset the memory cell here. So now, if we flick this torch goes off, and this torch goes off. So no matter what we do with this, the redstone is never going to get as far as this. And that's why it holds the output as inactive for right now. And that is how a data flip-flop works. So let's move on now. This is an edge-triggered JK flip-flop. Now, this one is one of the ones that confused me quite a bit until I broke it down and realized kind of how it works. I don't really have a practical use for it. I don't fully understand this, so I'm not entirely sure what you would use it for. But how it works is, anytime the clock signal changes, the only time that the output is going to change is when the clock signal changes its state when there's an input from either the J input or the K input. So right now you notice I hit the clock signal and nothing happens. Well, let's go ahead and turn our J input on, and we'll push it, and we see that the output becomes active. So we can hit this as many times as we want, but the output is still going to stay active. Well, let's turn off our J input and keep hitting it. We notice that it still doesn't change. The only way that we are going to be able to get that to change its state now is to activate and trigger our K input and then change the clock signal again. So when they're both on, you can hit the clock signal and it'll change every single time you hit it. And yet also, when they're both off, it's not going to change its state at all. So let's go ahead and explain how this works. Well, here you have, it's basically an RS NOR latch right here, and you have an input coming from here to this NOT gate, and this is basically an OR gate that is feeding the input of the memory cell. However, it's receiving power from 3 different angles right now, so all 3 of these would have to go out in order for this part, this torch to go on, which would set this memory cell down to the state that it's in right now. So let's go ahead and, this one's kind of difficult to explain, but let me go ahead and see if I can go ahead and show you guys how it works. So this input turns this torch out, which means that this right here, this NOT gate, has only one input coming in, and this is coming from the clock signal. So as soon as we hit this, this torch goes out, and for a split second, this goes out, this goes out, this goes out, this goes out, which allows this torch to come on. So that changes the state of this RS NOR latch right here. So let me go ahead and hit the clock signal so you guys can see that. So you see right there that this goes off really quick, but then it turns back on because this signal goes into this block, which this torch turns off, so when this goes off, this turns on, which turns this torch off because this redstone down here, which makes this go off and allows this to turn on, which ultimately ends up powering this piece of redstone all over again. So this right here only goes off for a quick period of time. So since it goes off, this torch is allowed to turn on, and it switches the RS NOR latch that's at the back end of this gate, which turns it on. Now we see that this right here is now receiving a signal from this side of the RS NOR latch. When this torch in the RS NOR latch is on, this torch is off, so it's waiting for the J input to be turned off, so when we change the clock signal, the output can change. Well, now the way to get back to resetting this is now we kind of have to go to the K input, and we see now that since the RS NOR latch was changed from pushing the J input, this torch is now off, which means there is only one input going into this NOT gate. And we know that there is a slight delay when we change our clock signal, where this wire right here goes out until it passes through this series of redstone torches right here. So there's going to be a quick time where this goes off and this torch goes on and resets the memory cell. So let's go ahead and give you guys an example of that. So you see that torch came on. This torch right here, you could see it. It came on for a quick split second, and it ended up resetting the RS NOR latch. So that is how a JK flip-flop works. I don't know exactly what a practical use for it would be, but if you do, go ahead and leave a comment. I would love to learn. I'm learning with this as much as I possibly can. The next flip-flop that we're going to get into is a T flip-flop, and this is a toggle flip-flop, which basically what it does is it allows you to have one input, and when you push it once, the output goes active, and then when you push it again, the output goes inactive, and it stores the data until the next time the input is pressed. Well, the thing is, you could have multiple inputs all leading into the same input on this, and it would still work the same. So let's go ahead and describe what exactly happens. Right now, by default, this is off and feeding into this redstone input, feeds into here, goes over this block, and feeds into this block. So when we turn it on, this block right here that I'm standing on becomes powered, which turns this torch off. Well, this also, right now, it's in the output, or the output is inactive, but if it was active, it would turn this torch off. And let me go ahead and toggle it really quick. So it's actually, so the output is actually active at first. So we see here, the output is active, and so this right here is not receiving a signal from anything. This is off right here, this is off right here. So when we hit this switch, the redstone is going to end up turning this torch off, and it's going to end up turning this torch off. Now this torch is controlling the output, yet it's also feeding itself back into what right here is another memory cell. It's another RS NOR latch. It's a little bit different in that the input is isolated here from this side. Well, let's go ahead and give you an example of how it works. So we're going to go ahead and watch these few torches right here. So basically what's going to happen is when we hit the switch, this torch is going to go off, which is going to turn our output off. But not only is that going to happen, this input right here is going to turn off, which is going to power, or which is going to turn off the power that's inputting into this block, which means that this torch is going to turn on, and it's going to have a quick delay, and it's going to put its power into this block. Now we know that this block is then able to send its signal on to any adjacent blocks. So this is going to receive its signal, and that is going to hold this block's state, and it's going to make sure that it stays off. The torch stays off, that is. While this is powered, this torch is going to go off, and let me go ahead and give you an example of here. So we'll flick the switch, and you see that this torch goes off. This stays powered, the output's off, and just like we talked about, it's a memory cell that's holding its cell. Well, now the thing is we need a way, since this, if we powered up this input, this torch is already out, so that's not going to help. So we need to find a way to reset this torch, this block, and this torch, so we can end up getting this redstone torch on to change our output. Well, we do this by doing this. When the redstone travels over this block, it powers it, knocks the power to the torch, which turns this series of redstone off, which turns this redstone torch on, and ends up sending the signal into this side of the NOT gate. So this is a T flip-flop. You can see the power is on that side of the memory cell, and now it's on this side of the memory cell. And that is how a T flip-flop works. Now, all of these logic gates, guys, there's tons and tons and tons of ways to build them. Don't think that the way that I'm building it is the only way to build it. There is so much more compact versions of how to build these. The only thing is I wanted to make them relatively easy for you guys to understand. So I wanted them to be kind of spread out so you could see how exactly they work. That's the reason why I had them like this. And then the rest of the gates that I'm going to get into are just kind of fun gates. This basically covers the Redstone guide on the Minecraft wiki, and a lot of basically all the logic gates that I know about. So let's move on. This is a two-way repeater. Now this essentially is this right here, except it doesn't act like a diode, and a diode only allows current to go in one way. So like if you applied power to let me just go ahead and give you an example. If you applied power to this side, it'll pass the power on through the diode and over to here, to this redstone here. Where with diodes, you notice that it will not pass it back through it though. It will not pass the power back through it the wrong way. Well, a two-way repeater basically works the same way, except you flick the switch and the output going this way will become active. Well, as soon as you disable that, you can go to this other side and it works from the other way. So you can have a current coming in this way that ends up getting repeated and goes that way, and when this one isn't in use, you can have a signal going that way and get repeated. So that is kind of handy. I haven't really found a practical use in Minecraft for that yet, but I know if you're building a CPU in Minecraft, this would probably come in handy quite a bit. Next one is going to be called a monostable circuit. Now a monostable circuit is essentially an RS NOR latch that, as the circuit goes around, it just resets itself. So we flick the input for our RS NOR latch, and we see this time delay right here goes around and ends up being the other input for our RS NOR latch. So we flick the switch, the output goes active. As soon as the redstone goes into that side of the RS NOR latch, it becomes inactive again. And that is how a monostable circuit works. Now the last thing that I want to get into is light switches. Now these light switches, this is the simplest form of a light switch that I've seen so far, that it basically takes a block. Let me go ahead and give you an example. Right now there's a glowstone block at the very end of this sticky piston right here. Well, what happens is the sticky piston is completely extended right now because the button, there's a redstone torch on the other side of the button, and it's feeding up to the redstone, or to the sticky piston. Well, when we push the button, this torch is going to go off, which is going to retract this sticky piston, and it's going to allow this torch and this torch to come on. Well, if you remember over from our other example, when you have a torch and a diode and then a block, it can pass the power through that block, and it basically makes the block power the redstone. Well, the thing is this takes advantage of that, in that right here we have a torch with the diode. So if there was a block right here where I'm standing, it would pass its current over to this redstone, which would go here and extend this piston. You notice on this side there's a redstone torch, the diode, a block, and the redstone. So when we flick this switch, this redstone is going to end up flowing in a cycle through here, and the piston is going to push this block to wherever this block is. So this is a light switch. There's a glowstone block at the end of this sticky piston. So when we push the button, the sticky piston will retract, pull the glowstone block up. This torch will turn on, which will send the signal through this block, which is going to end up turning on our piston, which is going to push this block and the glowstone block over one. So the glowstone block is going to end up right here, and the block for the stone block is going to end up under the sticky piston, and when the button returns to its normal state, the torch will come back on, and the sticky piston will end up pushing back into the ground. So let me go ahead and show you. You push that, and the redstone, or the glowstone block here, ends up being pushed out, and the piston extends. The stone block is now the block that's in there. If we push it again, it switches with the light switch, the light block, and this can go back and forth all day long as you want it to. Push the button, you see the piston extends, pushes the stone block in. Now I built a practical example for you guys to see how this works. Now it's the exact same thing. The button is here, the torch is on the other side, and it's powering this redstone that's above it. And then it's essentially the exact same thing above. But you see here, that's smooth stone. Push a button, glowstone ends up being here. You're doing whatever, you decide to leave, push the button, and stone is replaced. Now this could be handy in adventure maps and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys understand redstone a little bit more from watching these tutorials. I'm sorry they were so long. I just think that not really that many people have done a complete breakdown of how the redstone works, that possibly people who are new to it, don't really fully understand it, will be able to understand. So if this guide to redstone helped you out, any of the episodes, please go ahead and leave me a comment. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. If I completely made a mistake, I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It's possible that I could have made a mistake in explaining some of these. I don't really completely understand it. I was just kind of trying to explain how everything works in my own words. I'm kind of a beginner, so I figure if I could explain it in beginner's terms, you guys might understand it better. So if you guys found this at all helpful, please, please, please leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe to my channel. I love making videos and helping you guys out. If you guys have questions about anything Minecraft related, go ahead and ask it. I have no problems answering whatsoever. If you want to see a build, if you want to see anything. So this is Questing in Minecraft episode 48, the close of it, part 3, the Redstone tutorial. We'll be back with episode 49 and then the big 50. Teammates, you guys are awesome. Every single one of you guys are awesome. Hopefully we'll be able to grow our team, make it huge. The bigger the team, the better. And I hope you'll take that with you. I hope you start practicing some of these. If I get enough requests for it, I'll actually post this world for download so you guys can actually come play around for yourselves and see how everything works. So until next time, guys, this is Paintball Duke 22. Teammates, you guys rock. Have an awesome night.